Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Matt from 9 Day Performance. Behind me, I have the 392 HEMI engine block we've been working on. I'm going to do a quick video going over how to install pistons into a block and what a ring compressor kind of is and what it does and different types that you have. All right, so if you're just a hobbyist, you can use this one here that you see at the parts stores. I can't stand these. These things are a pain in the ass, and honestly, it can take a long time to install pistons with this. You can roll the rings, you can break the rings, because when you compress this, it doesn't always do it the right way. They have some that are like a wrench style that you can clamp on. Those are okay as well. Me personally, sorry if you get close to the camera, we use this. It is a tapered ring compressor. This one specifically is from BTR, Brian Tooley Racing. This one is a 4.090. This is for the HEMI. Now, BTR is an LS primary store, but they have parts for HEMIs as well. They have a full set of these you can get for different bore sizes. So, first you want to do is look up that number on your block. See what size your bore is. The stock 392 HEMI bores are 4.090. There's a little tapered edge on here that'll help locate the piston where it's supposed to go. And so here we have a piston. Okay. So we're going to take the bolts out. These are Molnar rods. These are forged pistons and rods, actually. Forged Race Tech pistons, Molnar rods. So we're going to set those bolts to the side. Your main caps on a piston, you can't just put them any way you want. So if you look on the Molnar ones, they look like they might go together a different direction, but they don't. So there's actually a number on these, but I actually usually mark whenever I take it apart, just a marker to make sure. But if you see here, there is a number. Those numbers should be on the same side of each other. Piston direction. On this specific piston, it has valve reliefs cut for the intake and the exhaust valves. Make sure those are facing the right direction when you're doing it. So we'll come down here to the engine block. Sorry for all the parts that are everywhere. So on this specific one, the intake is supposed to be up highest, the exhaust is lowest. How can you tell? Because when you look at the cylinder heads on the vehicle, you can see where the intake valve and the exhaust valve are going to sit. Usually the intake valve is higher, the exhaust valve is usually lower. All right, so we're going to take the cap off. Now what we do here, we're using calico bearings. First, you want to make sure you clean them off, wash them off, warm soap. Don't use abrasives on these. Don't use abrasives on your pistons, on your rings, on your, your bearings, any of that. So these are coated bearings. So when you see coated bearings, it's supposed to be a different color than the outside. The outside of this one's already been cleaned. All right, so we're going to locate this. I do not put oil or lube behind the bearings. That can make them move, slide, and not seat right. If you want to locate it with some, you can use transmission fluid, a light coated transmission fluid, because the viscosity is low enough that it'll squeeze out whenever it's compressed. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little assembly lube on the bearing surface so that when it's on the crank, it has a nice smooth finish to start with, and it kind of has something that it can start working with until the oil gets passed through the motor. Now, for these ring compressors, a lot of people might think, hey, I'm going to put assembly lube in here. Don't put assembly lube in here. It makes it harder. So what I use is regular oil. I don't know. I'm not endorsing them. I just have Pennzoil. It's the same oil we use in the vehicle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to dip it in this jar that's behind the camera, a little oil, and I'm going to run it around the inside of this. I'm going to run it around the inside of the bore. A little bit more, just make sure it's nice and lubed up. Run some around the piston itself. Now the easiest thing, face the numbers up, of course. You're going to slide this through the piston ring compressor. Now they're going to stop. It's going to stop sometimes. So as you can see, the rings are hitting it. Don't force it. Squeeze the rings by hand. Make sure they stay in their right groove or they will roll. Slowly work it down. And you can spin it sometimes to help. All right. If they pop out of their area, they're not going to want to go in the ring compressor. Can't compress rings that aren't in the groove. All right. So once you get them like that right there, just start rolling up. It's not in the right groove. So you'll come back off. Take your time. getting these in. You don't want to break a ring or roll a ring. Then you got a whole nother story. So, sorry, I don't know if you can see that, but I worked it in just like that. So it's inside. So you squeeze the rings going around, make sure they stay in the groove. Now you're going to look at what direction that they're going. My intake valve, which is the bigger one's up. I'm going to place it here on top of the block. All right. So this is the easiest thing ever when you use this ring compressor. Take it. It even falls off. I dropped it. So for those that are DIY, that have done that at home, it is not that easy to put pistons on a block with those cheap compressors. That compressor right there is like $39 plus shipping. You can't beat that for what you're getting as far as ease of use, even if you use it one time. If you break a set of rings, they're usually $20 to $50. You get a good ring compressor, you don't have to break the rings. All right, so once I get that piston in there, I'm going to roll it over onto its side of the block. Like that. Now we're going to locate, make sure our bearing is still in, and we're going to put it on the crank. Make sure your bearing stays seated. Now we're going to take the rod cap. We're going to put a bearing on the other side of that. Don't forget to put your bearings. You will destroy your engine. Off real quick. All right. So when you're putting these in, there's a little groove here. A lot of times that's just to help you align it. It doesn't hold it in place. It's to help align the bearing where it needs to go. All right. So another quick note. When you're putting the rods in, you're going to see like on these, the Molnar rods, 9 times out of 10 on the Molnar rods, there's going to be a stamped name on it that says Molnar. You want to make sure that the Molnar is facing away from the other piston, not towards it. They're directional. They're tapered on the HEMI platform. Some aren't, some are. If you don't know, call the company who makes your rods to make sure. These are directional. They have to be a specific way to make sure that the crank has the specific spacing it's supposed to have between the pistons. So, like I said, the names face away from each other. It's relating to pistons. You want the names facing the sides of the crank. So I'm going to locate now. I have numbers on top. Numbers on my rod cap. I'm going to slide that on. And then on your rod, folks, most companies have some type of an assembly lube you're supposed to use. Molnar has this little assembly lube that you're supposed to put on the bolts. So rub a little bit on the bolts. Like that. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and start them by hand. Do not start these with an impact, a tool, or anything like that. You cross thread these, now you're costing yourself a lot of money. Alright. Get that started. I'm going to go down as far as I can by hand. Alright. And then you're just going to torque them to spec. Look up your manufacturer's torque specs on how you're supposed to torque these rods. But that's how you install pistons into a block. If you have any other questions, let us know. Maps Night and Day Performance. I'll talk to you guys later.